video tutorial is going to show you how to make one of these beautiful flowers called the iris. Slightly longer stemmed compared to some of the other flowers we've made so far, but nothing could be simpler than putting one of these together, and the tutorial will show you how. So to make the iris, here's a look at what we'll need in terms of materials and supplies. You're first of all going to need crepe paper. I've used a slightly purplish, plum-ish color for the flower, but you could use your choice of color. Green for the leaves and the calyx, and yellow for the centers of some of the petals. You're going to need cutouts of the templates. I'm going to add the link to those templates in the description box below. And as usual, you're going to need the regular supplies for your flowers. You're going to need wires in 2 different gauges. One slightly thick for the main stalk of the flower, one a little thinner to wire the leaves and petals. You're going to need wire cutters and pliers, a pair of scissors, some thread, floral tape, a pencil or a pen to trace out your templates, and some regular craft glue. Let's look at the very basic steps now that we need to follow to make one of these flowers. You'll need to have a certain number of cuts of the corresponding paper for every part of the flower, and your template will tell you what that is. It'll give you a description, or rather the name of the flower. It'll let you know that this is for the leaf, how many pieces of each you need to cut, and you could follow the recommended color scheme. So for example, since it's a leaf, we're going to cut it in green. The color of the petals really depends on your choice of flower, depending on the color of the flower you want to make. Your template will also let you know whether that particular leaf or petal needs to be wired. Based on the template, we cut the requisite number of pieces, set the paper aside. You'll also need wire, like we mentioned, for some of them. Now, this particular flower has a slightly longer leaf to go with it. So your main stalk will be on the longer side. The way I look at it is, if my flower is attached right here on the top, I'm going to have my leaf appear somewhere over here, right? So it's fair to say that I've left a couple of inches a little below where the leaf will join the stem. You will also need to wire some of your leaves and petals for this flower, all right? So grab the thinner gauge of wire, one end of it. You're going to figure out how long you want that wire. So obviously, the length of the leaf or petal and about 1.5 inches or so, all right? Similarly, you're going to gauge how much you need for the petals that need to be wired. So the length of the petal plus another 1.5 inches. If you're new to my flower making tutorials and videos, I've created a detailed video on how to wire leaves and petals when the tutorial calls for it. I'll add a link to that video right here. So the iris has 3 different cuts for the petals, unlike other flowers that have just 1, probably 2 cuts. Actually, the iris has 4, 3 in the color of your flower and 1 in yellow for the inner sections of, inner portions of some of the flowers. On your templates, I've tried to distinguish between the petals. I've named them Petal A, Petal B, and Petal C. Petal A needs to be left unwired. Petal B needs to be wired. Petal C also needs to be wired, but we're going to do one step before we actually wire petal number C. So you grab hold of your petal C, take the inner portion. Now you have to figure out which side, if you're using double-sided duplex paper or double-sided crepe paper, which side you want as your right side, because your little yellow portion will actually be glued onto the right side of the petal. I've decided I'm going to stick with the slightly darker shade of plum, all right? And this yellow portion will just be stuck in the center like that. So let's get a little glue on there. And stick it down. Once this is dried up, I'm going to flip it over. I've got my wires wrapped in the same color paper, and now I'm just going to stick it onto the petal. add a little glue to the wire and stick that down. You can at this stage leave these aside to dry. We're going to start assembling the flower now. I'm going to take my main stock for the flower now. This is just plain wire. I've not done anything with it, not wrapped it, not prepped it in any way. Just straightened it out from that roll, cut the desired length. I'm going to now take my pliers, one end of the wire I'm going to bend over so that it is like a hook, and then I'm going to press it down. That's what it looks like. Now the purpose of making this little loop on the end is to ensure none of the petals slide off the stalk once they've been attached to it. We're going to start with petal number A now. For petal A, the only thing you're going to do is stretch out the top end of the petal. All you're doing is a little to and fro. What you're left with is a slightly curly edge, just like that. So if you're looking at the right side, that's what it looks like. Okay, you do the same thing for the other two petals. In order to achieve this frilled look, your crepe paper needs to have its grain in the direction mentioned on the template. If you don't have it in that direction, you're not going to be able to achieve this little frilled edge. All right? Don't worry too much about it, because once it is assembled, it will all look okay. All right? Take your stalk. You're taking one of these petals and loosely at the top, you're going to let it form somewhat of a curved edge like this. It's all right to now pinch the bottom of your petal. My wire actually goes all the way till about here, and I'm pinching a little below where that loop will form. Don't worry about where your wires reach so far, because once the flower and the petals are tied, you'll be all right. So once you've pinched the bottom of that petal together, we're going to take some thread. Hold that thread in your left hand and you're going to run that around nice and tight. You're doing this tight so that your petal is secure and doesn't move from your stalk. Once you've wrapped that thread around a few times, we're going to form a loop. The way I do this is I circle the thread on itself, loop it around the petal and pull. All right, let's see that again. That's my thread. I'm going to form a circle or a loop behind, bring it to the front, pull. Okay. You're now going to take your second petal and you won't really start where the first petal has ended, but you're going to try and achieve a little bit of an overlap. Again, you're looking for a slightly looser finish on the top, but you will bunch the end or pinch the end, the bottom end down so that you can tie it. The top will now look like this. Okay, once you've pinched that end together, again, you're just going to secure it with a bit of thread. With the third petal again, I'm going to try and overlap the end of the second petal. So that's what you're left with. It's all right to bend this wire a little while you're making it. If it makes it a little easier, you're going to then straighten it out later. With petal A done, we're now going to focus on petal B. Petal B now simply goes with the stem facing you, or the wire rather facing you, and about that much higher. This is wired, so we've got a little more leverage with the portion below. Again, I'm going to take some string or thread. I'm going to go a little below the portion of the petals that we've tied earlier, and secure that wire together. You're looping your thread around and making a little knot. I'm going to make a couple of knots on that wired portion just to hold that wire secure. Okay. You're now going to add your second petal. We've got 3, so make sure that the 3 petals are distributed, or rather spread out fairly equally. You've wired these petals, so the wire is going to give you a little more support in positioning or bending or deciding what angle you want these petals at. So I wouldn't stress too much about that at this stage. All right, so the same height as the first petal B, you're going to attach the second one. And the third. With petal B now done, we're going to attach petal C. Petal C will now appear between every 2 petals of our so-called petal B. Grab your second petal C between the gap formed between the previous 2 petals rather, is where we're going to add it. And the same with the third one. Once you've got all your petals secure, your flower will look like this on the outside, but don't worry, I know it doesn't look like much at the moment, but once we're done with it, it will start to resemble a flower a little more closely. All right? We're going to secure, or rather disguise, all of this string and these untidy ends using some floral tape. I'm using some green floral tape here because the rest of my stock is going to be green. Now, with floral tape, you've got to remember that there is a little bit of stretch, and only once that tape is stretched a bit do the sticky bits actually activate, for lack of a better word. I'm going to take this all the way and neatly tuck in the bottom edge of the petals. Right? Just the bottom edges. We're going to stretch, and at a downward angle, we're going to keep pulling and twirling the stalk for a little bit. Actually, I might at this stage go all the way to the bottom and cover the stalk up. Okay, and just snip the end off when you're done. You've still got these 2 bits for the calyx that we had put together earlier, we had cut out earlier rather, and we're going to attach these to the base of the flower, just about there. All right, so again, hold this around the base so that the tip is just covering the bottom of those petals. I'm going to fold that over, and that's the look that we're trying to achieve. Okay. So go get a little glue at the bottom. It doesn't need to be too tightly secured. It's all right if it's a little loose on the top, because that's the look we're going for. Take your second cut. Again, glue the bottom end. You don't want too much glue at this stage, just a little to kind of hold it together. And just opposite where that tip ends up, you want this one to appear on the other side, somewhat opposite to the first. Roll that around, pinch the bottom a tiny bit. Now, to make sure this doesn't go anywhere, we're going to secure that with a little bit of floral tape again. When I'm first joining floral tape, I like to kind of angle it upwards. Turn that around the stem maybe a couple of times. Straighten that out, one roll, and now angle it towards the bottom or downwards and attach or wrap it around your stalk. I'm not going to go all the way because the rest of my stalk's already covered, so I'm going to just rip it off here and roll these edges in. Now remember, because that floral tape's a little sticky, you won't be able to see the edge, or the edge won't come undone. All right? The last bit that's left is attaching the leaves. Decide how high or low you want your leaves to appear compared to the flower. I think I'm going to stick with mine probably about here. Again, attaching it with my floral tape, I'm going to first angle it, starting a little below the bottom tip of the leaf. This is going to be a little tricky because the stems are that long. They're going to flop around a tiny bit. Just be a little watchful of that. Take it upwards. When I've reached the base of my leaf, I'm going to now angle my tape downwards and secure the stem of the leaf to my main stalk. Finish that off. In the same way, I'm going to attach my second leaf. There you have it. We're going to now start shaping the rest of the flower. I'm going to tip these leaves over a little. Okay. Now, with my flower, petal C is going to bend probably most of the way down so that you can see that little portion of yellow. Petal B will be bent a little bit between these two. Just bend them till you're satisfied, mold them, shape them till you're happy with the way it looks. Remember that wire gives you a certain amount of flexibility, so you can kind of pinch the petals closer together, pull them further apart depending on the look that you want to achieve. Okay. And when you're done playing with it, what you're left is an iris flower that looks like this. I hope you've enjoyed today's tutorial. Don't forget to hit like and subscribe for upcoming video tutorials. Thank you for watching. See you soon.